Candidates Forum. I'm Mika, I'm with Folkin Vote, and I'm here with Matt from MyFM. We're going to be your moderators for the evening. Thank you to everybody that submitted questions, either at the door or in advance. We have a pile to get through, so we're going to keep it as short as we can with some of the preamble here. But we do have a few important things to get through. First, of course, we have your candidates. So we have all of the Ward 6 and the mayoral candidates here with us this evening. I'll start with Ward 6, so just wave a hand if you guys want to. We have Doug Long, Amy Martin, Jeff Miller, Rick Meisner, Gary Muntz, Adam Very, and John Wells. On the mayoral side, we have Crystal Chop, Russell Colebrook, and Charlie Luke. In terms of format for the evening, we will hear opening statements from all of the candidates. These will be 3 minutes each. Then we will move on to the questions that were submitted. Questions will be asked by me or Matt and answered by all of the candidates. They have a predetermined order they drew before the evening started. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. Once they've responded, we'll move on to the next question. The time limits will be strictly enforced. Each candidate, so if they actually go over their time, there's going to be a penalty against their closing statements. We've talked about that with them before. And all of that magic happens behind stage. We've got lots of timers back here. We've got recorders. And yes, what you will hear when they run out of time is this. So there's no options here tonight. They're not going over their time limits. All right, and now I think Matt's going to tell you a little bit about housekeeping and some ground rules.
Everyone's favorite part, the rules. The first thing, questions were received in advance by email or submitted at the door. No further questions are going to be taken, and please don't yell the questions out. They're not going to be answered. We expect professional behavior from everyone. This goes from candidates, campaign staff, and the audience. If you're unprofessional, if you start yelling out and doing stuff like that, you will be removed by security. There will not be an intermission. There's water provided on the tables. Help yourself. Washrooms are just out the door and to your right there. The cameras over there, they're live streaming right now, so please don't stand in front of them. People want to watch this. They don't want to see the back of your head. And keep your applause to a minimum, please. We just want to get through this, ask all the questions. We don't want to take a whole bunch of breaks in between. A reminder, tomorrow advanced polls start right here. So if you come here, it's from 10 till 8 tomorrow. And lastly, be extra nice to the volunteers helping you throughout the evening. This event is organized entirely by volunteers who just want to make sure that you got everything good for tonight.
Okay, it's time to get started with the candidates then. We'll have opening statements first. Each candidate has 3 minutes. First up, we have Ms. Chop, and Mr. Colebrook is on deck.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Chop, and I'm not one of the good old boys. Someone once told me that if girls could fly, the sky would be pink. That is not a fact, but these are. I am a full-time resident of Port Dover, and while I may not have grown up here, I grew up on a farm 30 minutes away. I came to Dover as a single 35-year-old female entrepreneur with big dreams of bringing a small business here to Norfolk. Now I'm challenging a 38-year incumbent, so if my candidacy is selfishly motivated and I am not elected, then where does that leave me? My mural was meant to get people talking about the red tape that is strangling Norfolk, because I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe in. Every candidate that I've heard from so far has listed red tape as a priority. Every candidate, that is, except for my opponent, who stated simply, "We don't live in Texas." I don't have an issue following rules. What I do have an issue with is municipalities that overstep their legal authority, whether that applies to me personally or to anyone else. Be aware that in the most recent official plan, the control over what you do on your property may be even stronger. However, existing case law says that the official plan cannot be used by the municipality to regulate land use. I will work with council and propose amendments to address those areas. Norfolk's financial health is also of great concern to me, and it should be to you too. I stand by my assertion that we ran more than a $5 million operating deficit in 2017. See the July staff report. The Norfolk Power Legacy Fund did not even earn enough money last year to cover the cost of our management fees. That our debt burden per household has risen from $1,400 in 2014 to more than $2,000, and yet I think most agree we have not seen an increase in the level of service. That our council today does not receive a regular budget variance report so that departments can be held accountable throughout the year and not at year end when it is too late. Charlie claims he has the equivalent of a PhD in municipal politics, so where have these reports been for the past 38 years? Financial information must be monitored regularly in order to mitigate risks by staff and council. I want to see an end to overpriced and overused consultants. I want to work with our frontline staff to find the efficiencies they know exist. Example, I've been told we are buying fire trucks with $200,000 worth of options that our very own firefighters, the ones going into the burning buildings, say are not needed. We need a complete review of our bylaws to make them more business friendly. We need to ensure that the local identities of our communities are preserved, but at the same time foster a council that works together. We need to put an end to the secrecy going on behind closed doors, and we need to do whatever is necessary to ensure that our volunteers are treated with the respect and dignity that they deserve, because volunteers are the lifeblood of Norfolk County.
Good evening, all. I'm Russell Colebrook, candidate for mayor, former taxi driver, and probably comic relief tonight. Thanks to the Board of Trade and Folkin Vote for the invitation to attend. This is a 3-horse race, 2 stallions and 1 filly, so I thought. Recent revelations, however, have forced me to question who I'm actually running against. Is it 1 stallion and 1 filly? Or is it 1 filly and 2 stallions? Confusing, to say the least. Well, I don't know why I came here tonight. I got the feeling that something ain't right. I'm so scared in case I fall off my chair, and I'm wondering how I'll get down the stairs. Charlie to the left of me, Crystal to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Well, you started off with nothing. And you're proud that you're a self-made man. And your friends, they all come crawling, slap you on the back and say, please, please. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. It could have been worse. I was going to sing it, but I'm not here to torture you. I've been asked if I've considered stepping aside and lending my support to one of the other candidates. That answer is no, I won't. I entered this race to stand on democratic principles. My grandfather fought for democracy in World War I, my father in World War II, and I stand proudly here as testament to their courage and resolve. And the funny thing is, when I typed that this morning, happened to glance down at the calendar on the computer and realized tomorrow is 14 years since my dad passed away. So, a little divine inspiration. I am certainly the most unlikely candidate for mayor. I don't have answers to many questions that will be asked tonight, but I'll answer what I can. There are forces at work trying to subvert and manipulate this election. I stand against them and their self-interests. I am here to stand for the people, all the people. There is a fox in the hen house, folks. Thanks, and enjoy your evening.
Mr. Very.
I thought she was
No.
going to call for Charlie. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it isn't Charlie next. It would be Mr. Very.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies, Mr. Very.
Sorry this time?
It's our first time through, guys. We'll get this right.
I'm sorry.
No. I wasn't sure if she said Mr. Mayor or Mr. Very, so sorry about that. Yep. I'm glad it's me. So I'm Adam Very, and I'm asking you for your vote to make me the next councillor of Ward 6. Those of you who know me already know how hard I work to make my community a better place. For those of you who don't know me, I have been a director on the Port Dover Board of Trade since 2009, and I was elected president in 2014. I've been re-elected every year since then. In that time, I have effectively represented the concerns of Port Dover's businesses, as well as the concerns of the community at large, at council and in meetings with staff and consultants. I have presented well-thought-out plans and proposals developed in partnership with the Board of Trade members, with volunteers, and with citizens. After many meetings with council and staff and consultants, the teams that I was part of managed to get them to agree to remove the overhead wires from downtown, and that was approved. The budget was approved in 2017 to do that. We also succeeded as a community to get Norfolk County to rearrange their schedule for downtown Main Street reconstruction around the busy summer seasons to keep businesses viable and to keep the downtown accessible for citizens and for visitors. After construction was completed, we met with several councilors to show where there is still room for improvement, things that weren't necessarily finished, things that weren't working properly anymore, streetlights and crosswalks and what have you. The result of those meetings was for council to agree that we needed a traffic study to have parking and traffic flow improve in the downtown. The result from that was that as we got to the budget talks last year, it was removed from the budget, so we didn't get those things. I'm not bringing these things up to complain about how it operates, but I wanted to show you that this is one of the reasons I'm running for council, is that we do a lot of work together, but when it comes time to make those decisions, they seem to not go through. I don't expect to get things right the first time, 100% of the time. The reason I bring these things up as well is to show you that I'm willing to keep going back again and again until we do get them right. It took several meetings and several deputations to get the wires done, or not done, but agreed to be done. It took several meetings and several deputations to get council to agree to remove the construction schedule. I'm telling you this because I've been there. I've been working on your behalf, and I have the dedication it takes to continue to get things done. The second point I want to make is that I'm aware that progress is not a me thing, it's not an I thing, it's a we thing. Okay? I'm going to finish with one sentence. I hope as you listen to everyone tonight, you keep in mind that we are all stakeholders.
So next we have Mr. Miller, and on deck is Mr. Meisner.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Miller. Thank you for being here tonight. There must be change at Norfolk Council. The status quo is not an option. Election after election, Norfolk County residents elect the same councilors, and these councilors debate the same issues over and over. Enough is enough. We need a council that makes decisions. The new council needs to act immediately and on awarding the contract to repair the dam. It is imperative that council instruct the CAO that all staff will treat our community volunteers, specifically our firefighters from every fire hall, with respect. Each fire hall, like each ward, is unique and shall be treated that way. We deserve a council that has a plan to move Norfolk into the future. This includes looking at recreational facilities, development, new businesses. We need to bring fiber optics, internet to Norfolk. We need to look at all community partners. I want to be part of a council that works together for the residents of Norfolk County. Councilors need to understand that one size does not fit all when looking at issues. Norfolk County needs to streamline the amount of red tape. We need to be open for business, not closed. Norfolk councilors must understand how to manage the county's finances and set budgets accordingly. How is it possible that the new council will face budget issues created by this current council? Why didn't one councillor ask for a budget adjustment? Norfolk Council needs to address the legacy fund appropriately. The principal of $70 million should not be touched. The dividends should be used for projects across the county. Our councillors must work together on creating fair infrastructure, plans for all of Norfolk County. We all need good roads, safe sidewalks, clean water, and safe places to live. So why vote for me? I believe in public service for the sake of public service. I do not believe that being a Norfolk councillor is a job for life. I know Ward 6 and Norfolk County. I understand business and agriculture. My roots run deep in Norfolk County. I know how to work with others and build consensus and how to make a decision based on facts presented. Enough is enough. It's time for change. Vote Jeff Miller. Thank you.
Mr. Meisner and Mr. Wells on deck.
I'm going to let you off a lot faster than anybody else. First off, some of you already know I'm Rick Meisner. I'm connected with Jeff, oddly enough, and our ancestry does go back to the late 1700s. We've been living in the county, so that's how long he says he's got a history here. I also have spoken multiple times on the dam needing to be done, and some of you already know that. We need to take care of our volunteer firemen. We need to get rid of the red tape. And some of you know that if I have to, I can argue really bad. I'm not afraid of anybody. And so if you want somebody to do those things for you, it's time we do something to fix things, because things aren't working well at all, and we need to change. That's it.
Mr. Wells and Mr. Long on deck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have my speech here, but I don't think I'm going to give it. I am one of those councillors who's sitting on this table at this particular time that is causing all the problems that we have in Norfolk County. I didn't realize we had so many problems in Norfolk County, and for that I apologize to you. Thank you.
Mr. Long and Mr. Muntz on deck.
Good evening. I'm Doug Long, councillor for Ward 6, candidate councillor. I'm proud to be here tonight, and I'm proud of our family's roots in this community and the community building that we've done. My family go to school, play sports, and live here. We are all here for the same reason. It's the best place. I'm in touch. I'm aware of the issues. I know what you want. Millennials, Gen Xers, boomers, all of you. I represent everyone. I bring substance and a culmination of experience, life lessons, and wisdom to the job. I am a complete package. Having run in the last election and finishing second only made me want this position more. I have prepared since 2014, and I am even more ready to go. I'm ready day one, no learning curve necessary. I could go on about my many accomplishments, but with time short, I urge you to check them out if you haven't already. I have an immediate to-do list starting right after I win with your support. Here are the 10 to-do lists. First, at my expense, if necessary, I will be opening a Ward 6 riding office in Port Dover, a renewed Norfolk presence, accessible, ready, and to do direct business, your business. I will carry a cell phone, and I will be accessible at all times. Second, I will sell this 6's platform to the rest of council, staff, and the mayor's office. I want a report card every year, and I will be accountable. I bring business sense to the job with the timelines, goals, and objectives clearly stated. Third, Volunteers are the backbone and the reason we have this great community. I will encourage and protect them. It will be my sworn civic duty. Did I say protect? You're damn right. I will stand and protect our citizens. Fourth, review of policies and procedures, including the HR practices. Revise sewer and water, that's number 5, and development charges. Find new ways to reduce our burden. 6, pedestrian paths around the ward, safer conditions on the Cockshut, Nelson Street, to name a few. 7, Silver Lake, done. I have a plan. I'm sure that'll be a question tonight. 8, gridlock and red tape. We have the same provincial rules as the rest of the province. Where's the problem? Is it here or is it province-wide? Fix it, make it better, lobby, whatever it takes, fix it. 9, my insight from my appointments, Marine Advisory Board, and especially Agriculture Advisory Board, has given me my great understanding of Norfolk and our great economic drivers, tourism and the economics of agriculture. I'm all about preserving, promoting, and protecting our way of life and Norfolk County. And number 10, it's a place that exists in some people's minds. It's maybe just to the north of here, and I call it an economic center, and it's also the hub.
Mr. Muntz and Ms. Martin on deck.
Welcome. And by the looks of the turnout tonight, folks have a lot of things on their minds. This election is a pivotal point in our future in Norfolk. Essentially, we have had the same old group, sorry, John, around the table for 18 years. It is time for a change. It is time for new faces and new ideas. In so many ways, the present council does not score very high. The senior bureaucracy at Norfolk has become more powerful, while the elected council languishes in leadership and authority. Seems like the more lawyers and consultants the county hires, the more council's leadership diminishes. I'm not going to make a bunch of promises about this, that, and the other thing. If you are involved in the neighborhood at all and you read the local press, you'd be hard-pressed not to know what I fight for and what I've stood for 12, 15 years. Rather, I would share my thoughts on how government ought to and must operate if we are to be successful. Knowledge and information are power. Currently, council appears to operate on the notion that the less folks know that what's going on, the better. If elected, I will work tirelessly to reverse this. Open and transparent government is my agenda, and that goes for whatever the topic is. Put an end to the closed-door meetings, with very few exceptions to this principle. Sunshine is a magic disinfectant to improve municipal government. Municipal government today is not easy. It's challenging, and it requires difficult decisions. I say, make the people council's allies. Share information openly and broadly. After all, the elected council works for the public who elected them, and the bureaucrats are the public servants, not our dictators. I think it is time for a reminder memo on that point to go out. We must be allies, not adversaries. If mistakes are made, and we all make them, council must take ownership of such mistakes, learn what we can learn from these mistakes, and move on to solutions, not secrets. With respect to spending, the budget must be driven by essentials, priorities, and not wishful thinking. Thank you.
Ms. Martin and Mr. Luke on deck.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. Thank you to Folkin Vote. My name is Amy Martin, and I am born and raised here in Norfolk County. I left for about 4 years. I attended York University, and I came home as quickly as I could with a degree in psychology because I love Port Dover. I absolutely love home. I was lucky enough to find work right out of school, which many of my friends were not able to do, in the health and wellness industry, which I'm extremely passionate about. And that position allowed me to be creative and find ways to give back to our community. So with the help of family and friends, I was able to plan a very popular fitness fundraiser called Blood, Sweat, and Cheers. Through the support of our generous community and my employers, we were able to donate $50,000 back to Lakewood Elementary and St. Cecilia's School in 4 years. Thank you. And that went towards community projects like the refurbishments to the Todd Eaton Memorial Track, brand new playground equipment, a community garden, and so much more. This essentially catapulted my career into the fundraising not-for-profit industry. However, more than anything, it demonstrated the community spirit that is alive and well in Norfolk County. I work for the MS Society of Canada, and I read regular income statements, I meet quarterly and annual budgets, and I attend board meetings. But I also own my own small business, and I know what it's like to go out and find your own work, to stay hungry and competitive in your field, and I think Norfolk County needs a little bit more of that around our table. Approximately a year and a half ago, I began advocating for a popular community initiative, and I found myself at council chambers for close to a year and a half. I was blown away by the inefficiencies and the inadequate representation that I was seeing week after week, and in my opinion, I felt as though I wasn't being heard and community concerns were being disregarded. I decided to be a part of the change. I was asked to run, and I thought, I don't fit the mold, I don't fit the criteria. What am I going to do? But after attending 2 campaign schools, I very quickly learned that those were the exact reasons why I should run. Norfolk County Council has no female representation around our table. We have no one advocating for the health and the wellness of our community, especially our seniors, and we certainly don't have a voice expressing concerns for young adults and young families who reside here. I know that I can contribute to these things and more. As you sit here today, I ask you to not only listen to the messaging that's being delivered, but how it's being delivered to you. We need strong leadership, strong listening skills, and open-minded, positive, progressive individuals to make us a stronger community. Thank you.
The last opening statement will be Mr. Luke.
Meisner Dam. You're frustrated, and I'm frustrated. 4 years ago, my first act as mayor was to begin working with MNR, LPRCA, and staff to get approvals for dam repairs. For 3 years, staff worked diligently on numerous engineering reports in order to satisfy ministry requirements. Council agreed. And this April voted 6-3 to release the RFP for repair. In June, we received price bids from contractors. It's all good. It's coming together finally. 2 councilors for years and years had supported the project, and they suddenly changed their minds and voted it down. Never in my career have I witnessed anything quite like this. Council was on course for repair, and staff did everything we asked of them to make it happen. Repair is the right thing for Ward 6, and it's the right thing for Norfolk County. My first priority will be to bring councilors up to speed on the history and the economic importance of this dam to Port Dover and our county. On December the 11th, I will introduce a motion to direct staff to reissue the RFP for the Meisner Dam repair. Leadership. Leadership style is extremely important. My style is to listen, encourage, work with staff, and to always be there for residents and business owners. Every year for the past 3 years, we've set a new record for building permit value, and that's how municipalities measure their growth. I regularly visit with developers and residents to keep projects moving ahead. It's not hard to see the growth and success happening in Port Dover and around the county. It's booming. Lots of talk about red tape. It's critical that I make this clear. Site plans are not red tape. They show the travel ways for pedestrians and vehicles, parking, drainage, water, sewers, lighting, buffering. Site plans are incredibly important for the safety of both the public and the business owner. We often advise individuals who seek out consultants and work with our staff to understand the project in its entirety, even before they purchase the property. I am committed to finding even more ways to improve our operations. I am committed to the success of the business owners and the safety of residents. I am committed to Norfolk County. Heck, I live and I breathe this place. What Norfolk needs is a fresh, new, and progressive council that does the right thing for the business owners and the residents of the county. I have the experience, people skills, and most importantly, the commitment to our county to lead this new council.
Thank you all for your opening statements. We're right on schedule, and we're going to jump right into questions now. You ready, Matt?
I'm ready. All right, the first question is, how do you respond to a private business owner who is concerned that the county is interfering with their business operation, either through permit issues, or the county offering a similar competing service? The first person to speak will be Ms. Martin, and then it'll be Mr. Muntz, and go around.
Lucky duck, I'm up first. I actually sat through Norfolk County Council session when a local business owner provided deputation that was extremely moving to our council, expressing concerns about the conflict with their own business, but also so many other businesses here in Norfolk County. They were finding that Norfolk County was subsidizing programs or offering similar programs that were cutting them off at the knees, taking money from our business owners' pockets. This deputation was asking Norfolk County Council for help to not compete with local business owners. Unfortunately, there wasn't a resolution per se, but I think this is clear to the public that anything that is competing directly with other business owners should not be entertained and not be tolerated. We need to work with our local business owners to make sure that they're in a profitable environment. Thank you.
Well, I am not a private business owner, but I do have the luxury of being a retired citizen. And it's not just private business owners that have problems with county. I must chuckle a little bit when Charlie says, you know, when you're coming here, I recommend you hire a consultant before you try and do business with Norfolk County. That's tragic, hard to believe. I've had the experience as an interested citizen in asking questions and trying to solve issues through the bureaucracy. I have been, and I'm sorry I have to say it, I've been lied to. I've been told, I know the answer to your question, but I'm not telling you. So that's why I go back to what I said earlier. We need open and honest exchange between everyone, between the citizens, between the mayor, between the councilors, and most importantly, between the staff. Thank you.
Number 10. Oh, oops. So, yeah, new business coming into town. The first thing, having been there, done that kind of thing, dealing with the region appeal in years gone by, red tape can be a problem, and I feel as a counselor, it should be accessible and help. I made a point in the last 4 years to get to know a lot of the planners and the staff, the people that make the job easier or harder, and I think I know the process. Sometimes it's having your homework done. Sometimes it's having do your due diligence. But as a counselor, I would be happy to help anybody. Obviously, new business is what we want, new ideas, new entrepreneurs. As far as the county in competition, I'll save that for right after number 10.
So Mr. Wells had to step away, so Mr. Meisner, you're up next.
Pretty much everything that's already been said is correct. The problem is who's going to get it done, who's going to make sure it happens. If somebody has a problem, you got to look into it right away. You got to find out what is the problem, why does the problem exist. You need to justify the county's position, and you need to justify the individual's position. The county shouldn't be competing with private sector. That should be something they should avoid at all costs. And the staff needs to respond to the counselors with the information in a timely fashion, because I've seen too often that council takes information under advisement as information and then waits for the answers to come back, and they're still waiting the next time you go in, and they're still waiting the next time you go in, and that's not good enough. That's all I need to tell you.
I was a private owner, and we had competition from other organizations that were governments and co-ops and things like that, and it's not very nice. What happened in town here is not very nice. There should have been a plan in place to work with that person and develop, maybe paying her a fee to help her with her business rather than compete with her business. Some of the things that I would like to see Norfolk County do is I would like to see some quality control. This is something we don't have. If a person has a problem, do we ever go back and talk to them and see what the problem was and ask them if everything was okay? No, we don't. I've never been asked if everything is okay. The other thing we need to do is develop a system where we have a concierge program where we have somebody to guide people through getting help so that we know that, thank you.
I am bad at prepared statements, so this is where I can only go up from here. So, small business. I am an owner in town. I have an office at 23 Market. Competition has been a thorn in my side trying to operate my business for more than 7 years. I've talked to counselors. I've talked to the former CAO about this, on and on about the staff competition. And what I kept hearing back was, well, we can't do anything. We can't interfere. We can't make a change. We can't tell them they can't compete with you because that's a human rights violation of how they spend their time. We can't tell you how you can solve this problem. My business partner is over here. He will tell you the same thing. We've been dealing with it. They will call us. They will call us for quotes to bid on jobs for the county and then turn around and bid against us with their own teams of designers and marketing people. And we're just a third quote so that they can get the bid. Okay, so I'm right there with you. I hear you. One of the things I can tell you is that I've met with someone who's applied for the new job of the general manager of the economic development department, and she told me that one of the things she wants to do is hire an ambassador to work for business, to work with businesses, to represent them when they need applications and red tape solutions.
Yeah, the red tape is a problem. The whole department needs to be reviewed and, of course, go through the books, get rid of redundant, antiquated bylaws, and it starts with people. Staff should treat people with respect. take it from there. Thank you.
First of all, Norfolk needs to stop competing with local business. This hurts our fledgling business, and we should be helping them. Second, I don't know why Charlie keeps hammering on about this issue of site plan control as though that is the only red tape that we are talking about here in Norfolk County. Our bylaws all around are excessive, and they haven't kept up with changing times. A quote from the National Post: "Needless regulation acts as a tax, saddling business with costs and sapping entrepreneurship." Fourth, I think that Rick's statement is correct. We can all agree that our red tape here is excessive, but it's about who is going to work to change it. And with a mayor that currently will not acknowledge that we have an issue with tape, I don't believe he is going to be the one to do so. The first thing I want to do is to see a complete review of all of our bylaws. I want to see an official plan that is in line with the law. And I want to see an open door policy at our county offices. The approach should be, how can we help you when you walk in through the front door?
Mr. Luke?
I was in AMO just this past August, and I heard Premier Ford speak, and he promised that this fall the province would go and look at ways to reduce all the red tape they have imposed on the municipalities. I got a email this morning from Mr. Barrett. Charlie, this was at 10:27. There is a round table traveling around the province to get input from business. We are working on hosting one here. Listen, do you folks think elected people in Norfolk County get together one night a week and make up gobs of red tape? We don't make up any. It comes from the province. And this thing about bylaws, bylaws aren't red tape. Bylaws are the rules. The province says how you guide your meetings. You have to pass a bylaw for everything. It's nothing to do. It doesn't interfere with businesses. It's what our clerk's department does day after day. Fills out these bylaws that prove that we're doing things and we did them right. Thank you.
Okay, question number 2. With respect to Meisner's Dam, since you've all agreed that the dam should be repaired, what is your next step to make that happen? Our first speaker will be Mr. Luke, followed by Ms. Chop, and we'll be rotating this way.
Meisner Dam. The motion that was defeated in June, folks, did not squash the project. Not at all. It's still in the books. It is still approved by this council that the dam will be repaired. The motion in June, the closest I ever had to getting a heart attack was in June when that vote was taken. The motion is that we did not accept the tender of $1.499 million that from Rankin. Still in the books to be repaired. The new council better get at it. And listen, the 1.1 million figure from 9 years ago in 2009, that's to repair the dam structure. There were other budgets along the way passed for consulting fees, for core samples, for the silt traps. They were add-ons each year, and they were paid for. Out of the 1.1 million, there still is over 50% in that budget towards the cost of repairing the dam.
Ms. Chop and Mr. Colebrook on deck.
According to the engineering report, if the dam were to slip or tip, significant damage would be likely to occur. Most significantly, this is a liability issue, and while lengthy court battles may determine that the liability doesn't fall on Norfolk, why even take that risk? Clearly, we need to take action. To my knowledge, $1 million was earmarked for the repair of the dam, and yet $700,000 was spent on consultants. Yet another example of misuse of funds in Norfolk County. One of the issues that I have is I don't believe that the public has ever received all of the information, including the legal opinion that is in the hands of council. I firmly believe that all of this information should be made public. There also needs to be clarity around the quote that was received, and the public is acutely aware that repair does not mean currently that the water levels of Silver Lake will be raised. In 2014, Charlie stated, and I quote, "If elected, one of my top priorities in the first 6 months of 2015 will be to have an approved plan in place with stakeholders to commence the dredging of Silver Lake."
Mr. Colebrook, Mr. Very on deck.
I attended the council meeting when it was voted on, and I got to tell you, for councilors to sit there for 9 years and vote to spend the money that was spent, and then when the vote comes, they shoot it down, they should be ashamed of themselves. If I am elected, it will damn well be fixed.
Mr. Very, Mr. Miller on deck.
That defeated motion was a bit of gameplay on the part of one of the councillors from Simcoe, I feel. He said that he voted against the repairs because not all the options had come forward. So if we're going to get that done, we have to backtrack a little, get all the options on the table, even the ones we don't like, get those ones defeated so we're only left with the right option and the good option, which is to repair the dam. My interest in repairing the dam is related directly to restoring Silver Lake. We've been told that even if we repair the dam, we're not going to be able to raise the water level, so we have to be prepared to dredge. And that is the solution to restoring Silver Lake. The repair is not enough.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Meisner on deck.
How long do we need to hear all the problems of not fixing the dam? I, for one, made phone calls to a number of councillors to see how they were going to vote. One, I got him to change his mind. The other one decided not to. Now when we look around the table, and I look at all the surveys that are out there, we were one short. When I look at the options now, I see that we will actually have the votes if those numbers are coming from the surveys that we have. Some of the things that we need to look at after we fix the dam are remediating the wetland and allowing for an educational center for children. And then we need to raise money for the dredging of the dam. But the dam needs to get fixed. Thank you.
Mr. Meisner, Mr. Long on deck.
Hell, I thought I'd already done this one before. For the ones who don't know, I chaired the Save Silver Lake Committee and the Waterfront Preservation Association for a number of years until this spring. And we already had argued this issue. We thought we had it completely okayed, and something went off track. Council needs to wake up somewhere in there. Somebody isn't doing what they should be doing and just wasting money on all of us. The cost to the community, if it's not repaired, is completely unacceptable. The danger to the tax base. What happens if everybody's house devalues because you no longer have waterfront or you don't have usable waterfront? How many people have a boat and might not be able to use it anymore? I know there's some of you in here that have been to some of these meetings with me, and I know you know these issues. We need to get this done.
Mr. Long, Mr. Muntz on deck.
I'm going to walk you back, I believe it was 1991. The Lions Club acquired the Silver Lake Park, or the property therein. It was 23 acres. And at the time, we had a lot of hurdles. There was a lot of issues with nothing that we couldn't solve, which we did. We planted trees. We turned that into the park that it is. I got the farmers market going. But the point I'm trying to make is here, we found a way of doing it. I think the dam, as one of my opponents mentioned, it's probably going to get done. I think it's going to get done sooner than later, and I'm determined to make that happen. But at the same time, we need to take the same plan and implement it as a whole. Look at the parkland. The people of this community, I don't think you realize it, but we own Silver Lake, and it's 23 acres. We are the biggest landowner there. Let's get it happening and let's get it done.
Mr. Muntz, Ms. Martin on deck.
Well, there's no nice way to say it. The problem at Silver Lake is no more, but it's a big no more, than an ongoing screw-up that illustrates the lack of leadership both within the political ranks on council and with the technical people. As costs keep going up, we will inevitably keep losing members from other wards that are willing to pay it. That's what happened this time. Quite frankly, I do not believe that all the costs have been honestly put in there. I think they're higher than what some of these people have already turned down. And I'm disturbed to realize that at the same time the vote was going south in council, came to my attention that the city of Waterloo has a park called Silver Lake. Little irony there. And they got hundreds of thousands of dollars for dredging silt out of their Silver Lake from the government, free and gratis. Where was our staff when that announcement went by?
Last speaker for this question, Ms. Martin.
So as Mika has already alluded to, I support repairs to the dam. However, Norfolk County taxpayers have paid for many studies, reports, and findings that I too would agree this information needs to be released so we can move forward with the best possible result. Anything that threatens commercial and residential fishing or boating in Port Dover will not be entertained. If dredging needs to happen, then that's what we need to do. Residents have expressed concerns about decrease in property values, smells, but mainly the lack of action from Norfolk County Council. I hear you. 9 years is too long. To answer the question specifically, how can I correct this? I've been advocating for the all Norfolk approach through collaboration with other council members. We need other votes to fix our dam. And I am committed to an efficiency. So one solution I propose to clean sweep long-standing issues off of Norfolk County Council's table would be regular site visits to high priority issues in other communities as a united front. Thank you.
Next question. They wrote this, I'm not saying it myself. I am shocked at the amount of money we are charged for water. I would like to know why we are paying so much for water and why we pay the water bills of tenants in rental housing when they don't pay their own water bills. You probably want to know the order, right? Mr. Muntz, you're going to go first, followed by Ms. Martin.
Well, whoever put the question in, I'm disappointed. Why are you just shocked? You should be disgusted. You know, I have to pay for my water. You, unless you're one of the Welchers, pays for your water. It's a no-brainer. There is no answer that is acceptable as to why this county puts up with this nonsense. It was interesting to note that only one of the councilors indicated that he had a conflict of interest because he owned rental property. I don't know, I'm not a detective, but I think there were more landlords taking that vote on than admitted they might have a conflict of interest. It doesn't make any sense. It is stupid. I'm waiting to see how Charlie rationalizes this one. I'd make them pay. And if they didn't pay, the landlord would have his water cut off because it all comes in from the same street. Then they'd pay.
Ms. Martin, Charlie on deck.
I I just had this conversation with a gentleman who attended my launch party. I would have to say that rental agreements are typically favored to the tenant, not the landlord. Although I do not think that this burden should fall on Norfolk County's shoulders, I am not completely on board with then charging the landlord the fees from the tenant. That being said, there are solutions and options that we can do to help Norfolk County and relieve the burden from the taxpayers' shoulders in water arrears. The Ontario Municipal Board has now stipulated that landlords are able to charge an additional $230 from a new tenant upon signing a rental agreement. For this exact reason, should they fall into water arrears, the landlord can now pay the municipality $230. This would certainly help. This is certainly a start to changing the system of this massive bill. Secondly, I wonder if there is a second option that we can start to encourage landlords to pay a percentage of the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Luke, Ms. Chop on deck.
Yeah, I don't support landlords having to pay for tenants at all, just like other utilities. If you rent it and you pay the utilities, water's the same way. I mean, if the landlord's paying it, the taps will be on forever. Listen, we have one of the highest water bills in Ontario, and there's no secret to that. You can figure that out. Kitchener, $175,000. One water treatment plant for $175,000. We have five water treatment plants in this county. You cannot use tax money to pay. It's paid by the users. People in the country pay for their own wells and sewer. So we have 30,000 people. Half of this county has to support 5 water systems, 5 sewer treatment plants. Kitchener has one of each for $175,000. We're working on a way of getting water pumped from the lake into Port Dover, up the trail, and eventually from Simcoe distributed to Waterford, to Delhi, and other points.
Ms. Chop, Mr. Colebrook on deck.
Charlie and I finally agree on something for once. I would agree that the water and waste rates are some of the highest in the country. I would also agree that landlords should not be responsible for paying water rates for their tenants. The question that I have, and I'm not sure that this is the answer, I haven't seen the documentation or the reports, but something that we need to start looking at is finding the efficiencies in our water and waste treatment plants. Where can we save money? How can we reduce the cost for people? I know under the last council, this is, again, I'm not advocating for this, I'm just saying it's one option. To my knowledge, Townsend is using 4% of their available capacity. We need increased capacity. One option is to be able to pump that additional capacity down to Dover and run it through the rest of the lines. You know, I heard last night from a gentleman out Port Rowan way that told me every day 2 trucks show up, one for the water treatment facility or one for the water and side of things and one for the waste. You know, why do we have 2 trucks showing up at one facility when we could be combining those things?
Mr. Colebrook, Mr. Veery on deck.
I don't have the answer for that. I'm on a well myself with sewer, but I'll tell you this, I'm not going to have my taxes pay for somebody else's water. Thank you.
Mr. Veery, Mr. Miller on deck.
I don't believe taxpayers should pay the water bills that aren't paid by tenants. I don't believe that the property owners should either. I have a business. I'm responsible for collecting my own receivables. If the Ontario government mandates water, they can collect it from the tenants that don't pay.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Meisner on deck.
I'm currently president of Haldeman Norfolk Nonprofit Housing. In Haldeman, they actually charge us water if the tenant actually decides to leave. So we have to go after the tenant. In Norfolk, we don't. As a person, yeah, who wouldn't want to not have to not pay for the water? Some things we have to look at is in 2023, as Charlie alluded, we're going to be spending $24 million on a new water treatment plant here in Port Dover. And in 2024, they're going to be spending another $6 million on a pipeline to Simcoe. I mean, how are we going to pay for that? And where's the money going to come from in the water? one thing that Crystal was saying, back a while ago when regional government was, and they built the new water treatment plant out at Nanticoke, I thought one of the reasons why the tower was built on the other side of town was because they were going to pump water from the Nanticoke plant into the tower here. Thank you.
Mr. Meisner, Mr. Long on deck.
Everybody pretty much agrees on this. The one example that I will mention is that we had an outfit here in town who used to make ice cubes. He sort of went out of business because he had a problem with, wasn't just the water coming in to make an ice cube, but all of you make ice cubes, I assume, at home. How much do you consider you lost out of those ice cubes? The bill for the sewage for ice cubes was even higher than it was to buy the water to make them. Make sense out of that one.
Last up, Mr. Long.
Couple candidates mentioned Haldeman and the capacity to run water into Port Dover, up the Blue Line into Simcoe and on to Waterford. That's one way of doing it. I've talked to other people about the water bills, and also talked to some experts. It was number 5 on my list, by the way. One of the things is Norfolk County needs to review development charges. Developers move into town, they build things, and of course we all love the tax base, but at the same time the development fees are very inexpensive in Norfolk County compared to the GTA or Hamilton. We need to look at that. So rather than put the burden on the existing population, we need to put it on the new that burden and pass it forward, not pass it back. So that is wrong. And also, we should not be picking up the tab for bad debt. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Why are you in favor or opposed to building the hub or Norplex Recreational Center? And it's a 2-part question. If the hub becomes a reality, how would you ensure existing recreational facilities would be maintained in our local community? First up, we have Mr. Miller, and on deck is Mr. Meisner.
One of the first things I suggested in my beginning statement was that we need to go through all the recreational facilities and evaluate what's going on. The hub is such that there needs to be a lot of money spent in Simcoe on arenas. The senior center, I hear, is 80 years old and in trouble. People are putting pails down to collect water, which is disgusting for seniors. But how do we pay for it? If we don't have, as far as I'm concerned, if we don't get government funding, it's not going to happen. We'll just repair and replace. Now, on my sheet here, I've got 3 options. We go, it's $60 million. We've got a new aquatic center, we got a new arena, and we got a new sports and senior center. You take your pick. If we get $40 million, we can do 2 options. If we get 20 million, we do 1 option.
Mr. Meisner, Mr. Long on deck.
Okay, I guess I'm one of the bad guys because I really think the hub is a waste of our money. Everybody would like a brand new facility, and everybody can accept that. That sounds great, but we do have to pay for it. And the taxes are going to have to pay for it. And with all the other things that you're talking about and asking about, you're going to get that, and then you're going to build yourself a new sports complex. On top of that, what's going to happen with the old one? This question was tied together, what's it going to do to fix downtown Simcoe? I don't see it's going to do anything to fix downtown Simcoe. Downtown Simcoe's got its own problem. It needs to be dealt with separately. It hasn't got anything to do with the hub. The hub will make it worse. I think that we can't afford a brand new hub when you've got all the others, and people who already operate the other facilities are all afraid that their facilities are going to be closed down. If the two arenas in Simcoe are closed, that will hurt the downtown core more than it'll help it.
Mr. Long, Mr. Muntz on deck.
Number 10. Having vision is something I'm proud of, and I see a great economic engine not far from here. It involves community, it involves sports, schools, jobs, new technology, environmental leadership, tourism, hospitality, and revitalization. Guess what I'm talking about? It's more than just a good idea. It's good for Norfolk, our community, and our home. Call it what you want. I call it a center of economic activity. The driving engine that this project will bring to Norfolk County, the jobs, the offshoots. You just have to study anything, any projects of this size, and it's a no-brainer. I'm worried about some of the smaller arenas and some of the smaller facilities in the county. We got to think as a county, so I want to be able to protect those. But at this point, I'm totally in favor of the hub because I see the economic benefits. Think of the schools. Think of the opportunity to do what downtown Brantford did, Laurier, Western. We'll get them all here.
Mr. Muntz, Miss Martin on deck.
Well, Mr. Meisner, maybe we have a lot in common. Maybe it's just our age, I don't know. But I, like you, am not afraid to stand up and say, at this time, I've never heard anything dumber, stupider, and non-supportable than a hub. We've heard people tonight talking about our economic situation and all that we have to do in hard services that must be done, especially if we're growing as we are. The money doesn't grow on trees. And even if you get some federal and provincial government, it's still a large nut to crack. The bigger question should be asked is why have we allowed facilities mostly in Simcoe to fall apart? I'm not sure it's not a deliberate plan. If it's bad enough, they'll have to build us a new one. Okay? We hear Norfolk has to come together, bring Norfolk together. And you know what that's code for? Simcoe, Simcoe, Simcoe.
Miss Martin, Mr. Luke on deck.
I began involved on this project professionally when I wondered if this could be the catalyst to provide better health and support services for not-for-profit agencies in Norfolk County. I spoke with many other program and service coordinators working in a variety of other agencies, and there is a desperate need to improve upon the programs and services we offer that can be more efficient yet cost-effective. The money will be spent either way. $15 million in repairs or a $15 million investment into the future of children, seniors, health and wellness of our community, recreation for varying levels of ability, education, and so much more. Anything that supports the growth and development for Fanshawe College in Norfolk County is a yes in my book. I'm looking for a forward-thinking council that can at least investigate a proposal like this before saying no. Indecision will only result in varying degrees of harm. How do you want your tax dollars to be spent? Thank you.
Mr. Luke, Miss Chop on deck.
First of all, I believe that this county is going to grow and grow and grow and grow. This facility that's being looked at, it's an option, it's just one, that's dependent on 73% federal and provincial funding. No funding, no multi-purpose complex. This facility is not for me. I'm 65 years old. This is not for me. This is for my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. This is something for the future of this county. So I'll leave this with you. There's no secret that Simcoe recreation facilities were going to need to be replaced, primarily the pool, the senior center. This has been our capital forecast for 10 years. We spent $72,000 to get the GRU consultant down here 4 years ago to give us, he did an assessment of our existing, and he certainly recommended some new facilities.
Ms. Chop, Mr. Colebrook on deck.
I don't think it matters who you are. It's tough to argue that the cascading benefits to our community from a center of excellence such as the Hub can be disputed. As Amy mentioned, growing Fanshawe alone could bring innumerable benefits to Norfolk County. The issue, of course, and I appreciate everybody's concerns, comes down to finances. Based on what I've seen so far, to my knowledge, the 4 facilities in Simcoe have to be replaced. If you add the amount of money from the staff estimates to replace those facilities with the provincial and federal funding that is available, and again, I say it is available, but it would have to be received in order to justify, to make an economic case to justify this. As far as closing local facilities, I fully appreciate that people move to a small town because they want their local community center down the road. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but you want to have that ability to retain a small town feel. And I certainly will advocate to retain those local facilities. One of my concerns, to my knowledge, and
Mr. Colebrook, Mr. Very on deck.
I do support the hub in principle, as long as the heart of it is a new senior center. I have taken people for years to the senior center in Simcoe, dropped them off, picked them up. That place has been falling apart for years. We got to respect our seniors. I would like to see something done while they're still alive to enjoy it. Thank you.
Last speaker for this question, Mr. Very.
I am the infamous undecided respondent to the question from Folkin Vote about the hub. I am undecided only because I don't feel like we have enough information to take a for or against position. We don't know the cost of the bill. We don't know the cost of the land. We don't know the cost of maintenance. We don't know the cost of staff. We don't know what potential revenue there's going to be. We don't know what repairs will be. We don't know what they're going to do with the old buildings. We don't know what they're going to do with the existing facilities that we have around Norfolk. What I don't want to do is promise you today that I'm going to vote for something that eventually makes the rest of those arenas and the rest of those facilities surplus in our neighborhoods. I realize that these things are important. They are parts of our neighborhood hubs, and we need these small areas in our own communities already. So I'm sticking with my undecided until I see actual information to base a decision on.
Everyone having fun? Can you prioritize the top 3 major projects you would like to see undertaken in Ward 6 during the upcoming election? Mr. Meisner, you go first, followed by Mr. Miller.
Okay, I guess if we've got to come up with prioritizing the top 3 major projects in Ward 6 during the upcoming term, I guess number 1 is the dam. Once the dam's dealt with, one of the things that I don't know if everybody's aware of that also happened out of Silver Lake before it got so shallow. 5 kids got full scholarships to American universities because they learned to row. 90s, in the 2 years they ran the dragon boat races, $90-some thousand was donated to the hospital. How come nobody remembers this stuff? These are all things their tax dollars are spent on. And if we've got to do a third one, maybe we should have our own dam hub.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Beery on deck.
Definitely, we need to fix the dam. That's a priority. Number 2 is I'd like to see an actual senior center in Port Dover. It's nice that Simcoe has one, but I think we need one for ourselves. It's a long ride to Simcoe. The other thing I'd like to see us do is I'd like to see us look at the parking. I know when I go to Stoney's in the summertime, I can't find a parking spot. And I think it's something that's very important to us here in Port Dover, that we need to get honest parking in Port Dover. Thank you.
Mr. Veery, Mr. Colebrook on deck.
So, no surprise, dam, restore Silver Lake. Those are related but kind of separate issues because, again, once that dam is repaired, we still need to find a way to raise the water level. We can't raise it, we have to lower the bottom. So that's 2 is dredging, 1 and 2. The third project is, I agree, a senior center. I hate to repeat what's been said, but it's not just the matter of having a center, it's about offering programming as well. Delhi and Simcoe both have subsidized seniors programming, and we do not have this. We need to find a budget, and surely, if we do build a hub and we can find $15 million of taxpayers' money within that budget to build the hub, we can find a few grand to have somebody come in and open up this building as a start to see what the interest is and see if we can get people out to enjoy partially subsidized programming. We'll go on from there and try to build our own center.
Mr. Colebrook, Ms. Chop on deck.
Triple dam the councilors that are now sitting. Sweep them out. Thank you.
Listening to the public and what you want is important on these matters. I think it's obvious from the crowd here tonight, Meisner's Dam is a top priority. I want to finish what I was stating earlier, and that was in 2014 when Charlie stated that if elected, one of his top priorities would be to have an approved plan in place with stakeholders to commence the dredging of Silver Lake. Again tonight, he says Meisner's Dam is his first priority. All I can say is promises made, promises not kept. Second issue, obviously, senior center. I think, again, judging from the reaction of the crowd, that is a very important issue here in Port Dover. And finally, parking. We do need additional parking in here. What I would like to see is Friday the 13th, and I'm talking exclusively about the money that is going to the council, not money raised by Lions Club or the Board of Trade. Where is that money going, and why is it not being put back into our community here?
Mr. Luke, Ms. Martin on deck.
Number one priority is Meisner Dam. You know, I put a lot of hours, certainly not as much as staff, to get this project going, and 3 trips to M&R, 3 or 4 trips to LPRCA, and a lot of push I did to get this to where it is, the Meisner Dam. You know, folks, I feel like my team, I quarterbacked my team, and I got them right down to the 1-yard line. And then in June, I feel like 2 of my own players tackled me. If we'd have passed that in June, we'd probably had the project done by now. Number 2, increased parking. We need some public parking lots for Port Dover because we're behind and it's just growing and growing. Number 3, we need to increase our infrastructure, particularly roads around the county, in particular in Port Dover. In the next 4 years, there's over 11 major roadworks scheduled for Port Dover.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Muntz on deck.
Much of the same. I would echo the first priority being not only the dam, but also the lake. Secondly, parking concerns for Port Dover residents. And third, I would like to encourage the change of the culture and the relationship that we, the people, have with Norfolk County staff, because what that does is it encourages open communication. It encourages transparency on issues of high priority, like our legacy fund, the status of our medical center, and maybe even create dialogue to stop competing with local businesses and host wellness programs for seniors through local businesses like the Twisted Fish and the Port Dover Health and Fitness Center. Thank you.
Mr. Muntz, Mr. Long on deck.
Well, again, it's a no-brainer. The number one, I think, on everybody's list is Silver Lake. But here's the bad news. It's not only we're almost into 10 years, but I do not believe we have the competent staff and the political will, at least on the existing council, to get the job done. Look at the engineering department. You know, do you think when she was working on this at the last meet Charlie's deadline for his special vote, do you think she might have been a little distracted with all the nonsense that was going on? And do you think her leaving very quickly and with a rather weak excuse of why she was severing her employment, do you think the lady might have been a little distracted when she should have been working on the most important thing for Port Dover? I think she was. That's about leadership. I'm not running for mayor, so I'll leave it to the other people to say what they want to say about leadership. And then roads, roads, roads.
Last up, Mr. Long.
Number one, the dam. Number two, Norfolk presence in Port Dover. We had offices here. We had a lot of things happening in Port Dover. I think it's time we want a senior center. Let's get a Norfolk presence back here. Why should we have to go to, I think, Langton to get a building permit? If we had an office here, maybe we could facilitate some of that paperwork that's so necessary, and the red tape that seems to be so necessary. Maybe a presence in town will make that easier. The second thing is that we have the second largest urban center in Norfolk County. I think we need to get a better bang for our buck. I think we need to, we're the biggest growing area in Norfolk County. So I think that we need a strong voice at council. And I think that the biggest problem we have in Port Dover is not having a strong voice. And we need to be able to convince and set a platform and get the other council members on board and start believing in Norfolk as an entire community.
Okay, so we are about at our halfway point. So what we're going to do now is 2 questions for the mayoral candidates, followed by 2 questions for the Ward 6 candidates. This gives you guys a bit of a chance for a break if you want it. So first, 2 questions for the mayoral candidates. First one is, what is your opinion on changing the ward boundaries to limit Ward 6 to 1 councillor? What? I think this question is supposed to say limit Ward 5 to 1 councillor.
Sorry, Mika, it's Ward 6, but how people wanted 2 councillors, that was the question, sorry.
Okay, so to increase Ward 6 to 2 councillors. Okay, so what is your opinion on changing the ward boundaries to increase Ward 6 to 2 councillors? We're going to start with Mr. Colebrook, followed by Mr. Luke, and then Ms. Chop.
I certainly don't believe we need more counselors. You saw what happened in Toronto. The way things are now, I think probably instead of 8 counselors, 4 would actually have to work their asses off to look after the people. Thank you.
It's you, Mr. Luke.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure I'm prepared to stand here and say, yeah, let's start doubling the size of any of the 7 wards. But I will say this: there's no question there's an east-west. People in the west say we get everything. We say it's the people in the west that don't want to vote in favor of investing money in Port Dover and the east. So that's something that's been there for 18 years. It's a difficult thing to deal with. But this is what I would suggest we do. I would suggest, if I'm re-elected, I would ask council to hold meetings in all of the wards and invite the public and say, what do you think is the solution? Let's listen to you. Let's find a better way. I'm not sure. You know, it's a tough thing because, you know, the division line from east, for geographically from east to west is Pine Grove. 60% of the voting people are on the east side of that line. So the west feels left out. Perhaps maybe cut the county in 4, have 1 councillor from each of those 4 wards, and 4 people elected across the county at large.
Ms. Chop.
I'm a little bit confused here because to my knowledge, the idea was not to add more councillors. It was the shifting of the boundaries to accommodate for the increased population in Port Dover and therefore shifting a presence over to the adjacent ward. I actually agree with Charlie. We need to start having public input on this issue, and I certainly think that as Port Dover grows, in fact, Mr. Luke, I remember at one point in time telling me that he believed Dover would be bigger than Simcoe in his lifetime. And so do I believe that Dover should have a bigger representation? Absolutely, and not just shifting that vote to the adjacent ward to make it easier.
Is this a full-time or part-time position for you? What considerations have you thought of for balancing council, personal, and work life, starting with Mr. Luke, then Mr. Colebrook?
Some of you have seen my eyes lately. This can at times be pretty stressful. As mayor, you have to be willing to listen to things you don't want to hear. As mayor, you never, ever turn your back on your residents, whether it's a big issue or it's something like there's a cat up in the tree and Mr. Mayor, come and get the cat down. And I've had that call. My biggest concern as the mayor is the challenges are, number one, the large geographic area. You're an hour and 20 minutes speed-wise, doing the speed limit, from the Sandhills to the Indian Line up towards the other side of Boston. It is a tremendous job for one mayor to do, but I enjoy it and I do it. My other challenge is I don't spend nearly enough time with my family. No. I got grandkids. I got 8 grandkids. That's the big drawback.
Mr. Colebrook, Ms. Chop on deck.
Prior to the filing date of the election, that's when I hung up my taxi keys. I've traveled the roads of Norfolk for decades and probably racked up about 1.5 million miles, not kilometers. It is a big county, and of course, depending on the outcome of the election, I might be looking for a job somewhere else, but it'll be full-time if elected, and I'm in it to represent every person in the county, and that's what I will do. Thank you.
I feel like this question is directed at me. Yes, I am a pilot for Air Canada. I fly wide-body aircraft. I typically work about 9 days a month. I currently operate on weekends. That will continue. I'm off during the weeks. In a worst-case scenario, that continues on that path. Do I believe that I can maintain both jobs? Absolutely. With 9 days a month, I'm off for 21. We have a deputy mayor to assist, and events, and certainly I've discussed it with people on the weekend. If I'm not able to attend, that would be the responsibility of the councillor in that ward, and that is how it should be proceeding currently anyway. I don't just think that this should be a job for retired teachers, and at $70,000 a year salary, sometimes you have to make some concessions here, but if Charlie wants to have some more time with his family, maybe he might just get that.
All right, this is for the Ward 6 councillors only. Port Dover is attractive to lots of new residents. Housing prices continue to rise. What things can a municipality do to ensure a broad range of housing options exist so all people can afford to live here, including young families? Mr. Muntz, you're up first, followed by Ms. Martin.
Well, those people that believe that the government should do everything for us will be disappointed with me. Port Dover is a lovely town. It does at present have a range of housing. Unfortunately, most of the new stock tends to be higher priced housing. And that's the way it is, and I don't want my taxes going towards somebody else's house supplement. So it sounds a little hard and a little harsh, but it's not the municipality's role to be everything to everybody. And if you can't afford to live here, you can't afford to live here. Most of the people who do live here now do not have that problem. They have their housing. And many of our senior citizens have been here forever and ever. What we have to do is make sure that they don't get squeezed out of their housing. And you do that by keeping taxes reasonable. Thank you.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Luke on deck.
I can speak to this issue on a very personal level. As a 30-year-old living in Norfolk County, I can tell you it was next to impossible to find an affordable place to live for the purchase of my first home. That being said, I support managed development. And what does that mean? It means that developers should be held accountable for developing programs, services, and amenities at the same pace as housing development. By this I mean roads without potholes, parking solutions, bike trails, sidewalks, doctors, sewer, water, waste, new business, arts and culture, and affordable housing. Let's look to our developers. All the while preserving the heritage that is important to us. We're in the change now, Ward 6. The development and growth is happening now, so it's time to have a conversation about how we want to handle it. Thank you.
Mr. Luke, Ms. Chop on deck. Oh, yeah. No, it's Mr. Various. I'm sorry. Make my own notes here. Got distracted. Sorry, sir.
The issue of affordable housing to me comes down to supply and demand. There is not enough housing available that is affordable to buy, so what is available is too expensive for people that want to buy their first homes. I get that. I've been in that same situation just like Ms. Martin with trying to find a home in Dover. For me, the issue isn't just about buying a house, it's about affordable rentals as well. And right now, because of the shortage, we have property owners that can certainly do a lot better with their investments than renting it week to week and seasonally than we can to have families living full time. So it's about rentals as well as buying. Another concern I do have is I hear a lot is it's not just seniors that are already here, but that can't afford to live here, and if you can't afford to live here, too bad. It's about that they do live here and they can't afford to downsize their homes, and that's another issue we have to address. So to me, the answer is we have to increase the supply. We have to increase the supply of affordable housing by allowing or encouraging developers to include that in their development plans.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Meisner on deck.
One of the reasons I decided to run was for this very issue. I saw some of the seniors and parents of friends of mine that could no longer afford to live in Port Dover. So what did I do? I work with Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation here in Port Dover, and we're in the process of coming up with 23 units of affordable housing just over here. The other things that we can do, I'm committed to seeing a smart development happen. As more residents move into our ward, the infrastructure must keep pace to support the development. So the other things we should also look at is the modern nursing home that we're actually talking about, you know, the 125 beds at Dover Cliffs, and the other senior support services that we need to support our seniors. The Meals on Wheels, the transportation.
Mr. Meisner, Mr. Long on deck.
I don't know. The question was, could they afford to live here? And as it stands, there's a lot of people who can't afford to live here, and that's really an issue. It's not a good situation for our town. I don't know if the figures are accurate at this point, but one of the things that I remember from the past in having to go and argue with council is that I believe Dover's growth rate is just about equal to the other 4 communities in the county in total. That's pretty close, isn't it? That's one of those things we need to get more in Dover, seeing as we're the ones, if these, like they're saying, we're going to get as big as Simcoe, we got to start growing everything. Can't just do one little bit at a time. Got to keep the taxes down so people can afford to have their houses and not lose them. And developers are going to have to pay for a lot of this if they want to keep making big profits off of bringing all the new housing here.
Mr. Long.
So there's a lot of opportunity in Port Dover for some infilling of affordable housing. Seniors housing is definitely an issue. If you grow and live in Port Dover, you want to downsize, or you can't afford your home or whatever, you got to go to Townsend or somewhere else. I don't want to see that happen. I want to see some more higher density housing, maybe in some of the newer developments. And lastly, up at South Coast, I don't know how many people are from there, but there is some development on the books for seniors housing up there, and some apartment living complexes. But again, what I hear up there is a lot of red tape and a lot of issues. So anything as a counselor that I could do to alleviate what I call the affordable housing in Port Dover, I'm all for it, and I'll do my best to make that happen. Thank you.
Do we still need some outside lights turned on? Yes. So if Shirley is in the audience somewhere, we are trying to turn on the outside lights. If you could go help them out with that, that would be great. Or anyone that knows how to turn on the outside lights. Thank you.
All right, now the next question is, what have you done personally to contribute to Port Dover in the past 2 years? Mr. Wells is not here. I'll go to the man sitting beside him, Mr. Long, if you want to start.
After the last election, and I felt I came this close, I decided to get involved further and do some other things within the community. One of the things that I was pursuing at the time was the Marina Advisory Board. It's just been recently that the county's gotten back into the marina business. It was maybe going to be for sale. There was a lot of, so it's kind of exciting to be involved in what I call a jewel of Norfolk County, our harbor and our marina. And the other thing that I did get involved with was with the Agriculture Advisory Board, and it allowed me to work with young farmers, new farmers moving back, and to realize what a large spectrum of jobs there is available out there. I'm excited to see Fanshawe College putting some new programs in, and just recently toured the fruit growers and the technology involved in producing our fruits and vegetables. We need technology, and we need scientists, and we need people that are able to do that, and it's really encouraging and exciting. Thanks.
Mr. Muntz, Ms. Martin on deck.
Well, I would have to describe myself as a bit of a lone wolf, and for the last several years I've spent an awful lot of time riding herd on Norfolk Council. My platform happens to be the Maple Leaf, which I think most of you read. I'm quite proud of the effort I have been making lately with respect to where the hell did our $150,000 go that Norfolk County gave to the medical center group? And what are we going to do to help out the 5 innocent people that got sucked in backwards to a lawsuit that had nothing to do with them, but it had everything to do with Norfolk County not being accountable and responsible for the money it hands out? They give out $150,000, not a receipt, nothing, just, oh well, it's all gone. So I've been quite busy on that file, and I'm quite proud of it, and I think it will bear fruit at some point.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Veery on deck.
So for about the last year and a half, I've spent quite a bit of my time advocating for the Community Hub initiative, and that includes talking with not-for-profit agencies, service clubs, and a whole boatload of recreational teams in Norfolk County. I have spent time volunteering with the South Coast Open Water Swim that happened this year, a phenomenal event in Turkey Point. I am a proud annual volunteer at Lakewood Elementary Track and Field for triple jump. You can find me over in the sand pit. Friday the 13th, I'm always helping with the Port Dover Kinsmen. Blood, Sweat, and Cheers, a massive fitness fundraiser that we've had in town. And at the beginning of this year, I was able to join the Port Dover Foundation as a trustee, so that's pretty exciting for me. Thank you.
Mr. Veery, Mr. Miller on deck.
All right. So, in the last 2 years, I've been the president of the Port Dover Board of Trade, which includes representing you at council. I've been volunteering at all of the events we put on, which includes Perch Derby, Friday the 13th, Summer Festival, and Christmas Fest. I am Santa Claus in the Christmas Fest Parade. And at the, don't laugh, it's true. And I have been for 9 years. I've been at the Doverwood and now Lakewood Elementary School sale as their volunteer Santa Claus. I'm on the United Way Allocations Committee. I was just dressed as a giant perch raising money for the United Way a couple weeks ago. And with that perch costume, I raised the most money of any individual that participated. It was over $1,000, and they gave me a little trophy with a logo on it that my business donated. I am a member. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Simcoe. I find people in Port Dover and send them to something called the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, which gives young people a chance to learn leadership at an upstate New York college. And that's been all Dover kids I've sent. I'm the chair of the Lynn River Music and Arts Festival in Simcoe. That is money for Port Dover Minor Ball, Minor Hockey, Lions Club, and NACL, Rotaract. I'm also the manager of Currently in Port Dover, which has 7,500 members. So.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Meisner on deck.
I'm currently the Lakewood community rep. As of 2 weeks ago, you saw me flipping hot dogs with Meet the Teacher Night. I'm also the president of Haldeman Norfolk Nonprofit Housing, and one of the things that I'm really happy about is getting those 23 units over on Region Ave. Tomorrow, you will see me at the Norfolk County Fair because I'll be working with Ag Awareness with the grade 4s. We teach kids about agriculture. We get kids from Brantford, we get kids from Haldeman and Norfolk to see sheep shearing, milking, apples, corn and soybeans, and all those good agricultural things that we provide in Norfolk County. The other thing I've been working on is the remediation of Silver Lake. Once we fix the dam. Thank you.
Last up, Mr. Meisner.
Okay, I guess up until this spring when the old board from the Port Dover Waterfront Preservation Association and the Save Silver Lake Committee shifted, and we had new officers went in. But for the last, I didn't keep track, 6-8 years, I chaired those two organizations, arguing to try to get the dam fixed and trying to figure out what we would do after that to fix the lake. Other than that, don't know if all of you know what I do, but the large red fishing boat that goes out of the harbor most days, my brother and I built it 40 years ago, and I still go to work on it most days. Beyond that, My daughter's here, and my grandkids are the rest of my time after that.
Okay, we are back to responses from both the mayoral candidates and the Ward 6 candidates. So question 10. How can we be certain that the policies established by senior administrators reflect the values and traditions of the community when senior staff can dismiss our fire chief and the mayor and councillors say they can't talk about it? How would you ensure our community's values are reflected in the day-to-day operations of Norfolk County? So I have Mr. Very to start us off, followed by Mr. Colebrook.
I could start the easiest one. Oh, man. Staffing, I gotta say, I certainly feel for Chief Sprague. I get it. I understand that it's an unfair way to end a long career. That being said, people, you have to understand that council doesn't manage staff. Council creates policy that the staff has to follow. So when council says they can't do anything, that's technically true. However, where I see room for improvement is instead of saying we can't do anything, they could communicate with us and talk about what happened and why they can't. Council's there for governance. Council's not there for management. So ensuring that our values are there, that's where they make the policy, and that's where council can ensure that our values are there. It's not an issue of staff. The way to participate is to be heard. It's to question your government. It's to show up, and it's to participate in discussions. That's the way you can ensure your values are heard by policy and management and staff and council. And that's really the only way. It's up to us to represent ourselves if they're going to represent us.
Mr. Colebrook, Ms. Chop on deck.
First order of business is to figure out who exactly is running the asylum. Seriously, your elected officials, are they in charge, or are paid employees in charge? Because I can tell you, I'm not in business for myself now, but if I had paid employees, they damn well wouldn't be telling me what to do.
Ms. Chop, Mr. Luke on deck.
When Charlie was campaigning last time, he bragged about the many pink slips that would fly. Funny that the only pink slip issued was to our fire chief, a 44-year community volunteer. I further can't understand in the case of Rick Gamble how a volunteer is suspended for 3 weeks and because he's given one option of a date and time for a meeting, and because he was unable to attend is suspended for 3 weeks, and yet our CEAO punishes himself for 7 hours of vacation time. Senior staff, in my view, has far too much control in Norfolk County. Our mayor is the CEO of our corporation, and our council and our mayor collectively are meant to direct policy to that CAO to disseminate to staff.
Mr. Luke, Ms. Martin on deck.
Section 275, paragraph 3, restrictions to a lame duck council. The Bible, what we must follow. I quote, a lame duck council will not be involved in the hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality or any action thereof, end of quote. Listen, this is a difficult situation for me, folks. On a personal note, I met Gary Sprague in high school. I played intermediate junior hockey with Gary. He was a fine competitor and hockey player. Sorry, Gary, but I dated your wife in grade 10, Wendy. You married very well, and so did I. I taught Amy and Carrie at Doverwood Public School. I know people are curious. They want to know the detail. I get that. But we cannot and will not publish any details of a hiring or a firing on the front page of the paper. I can't tell you the details because, quite frankly, I don't know them.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Muntz on deck.
Council needs to be at the helm of Norfolk County. It is Council's job to provide direction to one staff member and one staff member alone, the CAO, who then trickles said direction down to the remainder of staff. Without strong leadership from the top, County will lack the guidance to execute the daily happenings of a strong community. It is no longer a viable excuse to pass the buck. There are many day-to-day happenings that Council may not be aware of or included in. However, if a situation presents itself that creates turmoil in the community, Council must act and communicate with the public. Let's determine what happened so we can avoid it from happening again. Let's try to correct the action, and let's communicate a corrective action. We may not, or Council may not, always be able to divulge information with you, but a strong leadership team can communicate corrective action. Station 2, you are appreciated.
Mr. Muntz, Mr. Long on deck.
Well, this nonsense about the lame duck, and yes, it is in the legislation, and there are good reasons for it to be there, but it's also been used by our council as a smokescreen, not to have to face up and deal with things that happen on their watch. If it wasn't there, Charlie would have it invented. I see the county council like a board of governors, has already been stated, and they do have an employee, and that's the chief operating officer, or whatever we're calling him this week. And this nonsense that the word should be we shouldn't talk about personnel issues, but he pushed the wrong button. The whole world heard about Gary Sprague's thing, and it didn't look very good on Mr. Sprague, and it didn't look very good on Mr. Gamble, our now acting chief. And I actually assisted Mr. Gamble in trying to straighten out the nonsense with the city, or the county, excuse me. And the fact is, they don't have policies. Mr. Gamble asked to see the policies under which he was being chastised, and good luck seeing them.
Mr. Long, Mr. Meisner on deck.
I alluded to volunteers earlier, and I vowed to protect volunteers of all kind. And I recently, and actually Mr. Muntz alluded to some issues with volunteers getting sued and the county not standing behind them. I'm challenging to the press right now to do an investigative report on two issues. One, the firing of Chief Sprague, and one on the medical center. I want the truth to come out, not just hearsay on both issues. I know there's court issues pending, but it's a damn shame. Port Dover's built by volunteers and protected by volunteers, and it could happen to minor baseball. It could happen to the Girl Guides. It could happen to anybody, whether you get sued. Or as a volunteer fireman, it's not right.
Mr. Meisner, Mr. Miller on deck.
I think I'm in a bit of a bind that I can't say everything that I know either. I've known Fuzzy Sprague for probably 60 years. I happened to be sitting on his front porch talking to him about this issue when somebody from HR showed up to have a visit with him. I don't think I probably should say what that person was there for, because it might actually cause some problems. But we definitely need to do more to protect our own, the ones who protect us. And in the case of this whole initiative, I think that our CAO, or whatever he's labeled as at the moment, he's got to get a real strong message that he's got a whole lot of people that don't like him, and they really don't even like him having his job. He should be dismissed more than...
Last, we have Mr. Miller.
In my initial statement, it is imperative that Council instruct the CAO that all staff will treat our community volunteers, specifically our firefighter volunteers, with respect. This was a sad situation. My father was a fireman. I know what he puts on the line. They pick up people that are dying, they're dead. We got houses that are burnt down. And then we treat a man of 40 years service to this community not with the respect that he deserved. I believe that he should be hired back. I think the integrity commissioner that we actually pay $30,000, I don't know if we've ever heard much from the integrity commissioner. We got the fox in the hen house, the CAO, managing what's going on here. But we need to look at the CAO and make sure that things are right, because I believe that Gary Sprague was wronged. Thank you.
Where does a new medical center for Port Dover fit into your priorities? And how much money would you be willing to have taxpayers contribute, since at least $150,000 has already been spent on nothing to show for it? Mr. Long, you're next on the list.
Well, so far the medical center's cost my family, as an executor of my late father's estate, $5,500. He went to the big home in the sky, totally disappointed in the whole system. He spent his whole life volunteering and working to bring a medical center to this town, and it's sad. It's sad that 18 or 16 people, former friends, are now infighting. There's a lot of issues out there. There's a lot of misinformation being spread around. And at the end of the day, these were well-intentioned, community-minded people. And I could go on for quite a while about this issue. Out of that, we did get some new doctors. We have a decent medical center, and I'll be behind Mr. Lennox and his project if that needs to be done. I believe it does. And I'm in favor of getting more doctors and more better medical center and an x-ray clinic and everything else that we need in this town.
Matt,
Yep.
who's next for you?
I have Mr. Long, and so
Mr. Muntz?
Mr. Muntz is
on
next.
deck. And then Miss Martin on deck.
Well, it appears right now that the existing medical center is operating not too badly. It's too bad we didn't have enough foresight on council to have rehabilitated that building before all the nonsense started. We have blown through $150,000, and that's not the end of the world. But what the end of the world is that the council, the existing council, refuses to ask for documentation as to where the heck the money went. And innocent people were hurt. Volunteers should worry now. I don't think I'd volunteer for anything if they didn't provide me with a save harmless agreement. Because the people that got screwed over on this thing, they were doing everything right, okay? The leadership didn't, so have a clean breast of it. Put the documents out there. If you got egg on your face, you'll have egg on the face. But the real culprits are the existing members of council, because they will not do that. By the way, I've posted that information. that I'm not
Miss
supposed
Martin,
to have.
Mr. Luke on deck.
Okay, to speak directly to the question, I can't stand in front of you today and tell you what you should pay to have a medical center here. But what I can say is there's not a single one of us sitting up here that can provide you with a medical center alone. We need collaboration from the community. I can vow to you to communicate and have open, transparent communications about the status of where we are at. In 2014, $50,000 per year for 5 years was given to a group of community-minded individuals with the intent intent of developing our medical center here in Port Dover. This has resulted in 4 new physicians and a pediatrician, as well as renovations to our current existing St. George Street building. We do know that there is a developer in town with a very public posted sign with the intent of building a medical center. And through my own conversations, I can also speak to a team of healthcare professionals that are working together to ensure the doctors we do have stay in Port Dover and hopefully in a new building. Thank you.
Mr. Luke, Ms. Chop on deck.
You know, sometimes people can come to the microphone, look you in the eye, and say something with conviction, and you believe it. Norfolk County Council, despite what you heard, has asked the former Medical Center Board for a complete financial statement of where $150,000 went. We got a bit of an explanation, but nothing in detail. But we spent $28,000 painting and fixing over it, and did a good job. This was a temporary fix till the new one came in. So council asked that. Council has no legal right to make them hand that over. If I was a member of that board and I got stiffed, I'd be asking internally, who's looking after the money here? Can a board member ask their own board, where is the money? 3 $50,000 checks went into a bank account. We should be able to get a bank record how every penny came out. Why can't we get that? We asked for it. We still haven't got it.
Ms. Chop, Mr. Colebrook on deck.
I agree that Dover needs a medical center. Our current facility isn't ideal. Our current fire chief, when I spoke with him yesterday, had a great line. There is a difference, however, between wants and needs. For this to happen, private enterprise is going to have to step up. If you listen to my opening, Norfolk County's financial situation is in precarious position, and I think that there are things that we need to be focused on before we are focused on a medical center here in Port Dover. I've heard a lot about the issue that happened here in Port Dover, and I hesitate to comment because I haven't seen the documentation. What I do believe, however, is that if the county gives money, staff must be directed to make sure they know that when money is lent out, the reports are created because the public has a right to know who got it and why. Accountability has to be paramount from the start, not after the fact. It needs to be part of the deal.
Mr. Colebrook, Mr. Veary on deck.
I would definitely support the new medical center here. I'm not a number cruncher. But anybody remember when that 200,000 sailed across Lake Erie for the ferry? That was a hell of a vanishing act, wasn't it? So that 150 evaporated somewhere. I don't know. Hopefully we will get some answers. And if the hub's a bust, I'm sure we can find the money for a medical center. Thank you.
Mr. Veary, Mr. Miller on deck.
The question was, where does it fit in my list of priorities? The priority is high. I would prefer to support the development, the private development at Dover Coast, and if there's any way at all to expedite permits and approvals to get that thing built, that's great. From there, we're going to have to fundraise, I think, for equipment and additional, amenities. I think we can do that as a community. Norfolk General Hospital regularly raises funds for the equipment they need, and I think that that's something that Port Dover will rise to the challenge for. We've done it several times with major projects. I'll also tell you that I'm an experienced and fairly successful grant writer. I'm happy to be a part of this project in order to raise money for the medical center. But I will say, as far as the checks and balances go, that I have never ever written a grant or worked on a not-for-profit project where accurate reporting was not part of the requirement to even get the funds. So I think from here on, that's going to be a priority as well.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Meisner on deck.
I think it's a major priority that we get a medical center. It's been almost like the dam we've been talking about at this damn medical center. $150,000, where did it go? I mean, that's disgusting. When we look at the Port Dover Lions Club, when I was a young kid, the Port Dover Lions Club built the current medical center on their own with your money. We didn't get money from Norfolk County or wherever. We got the money from you. And I believe that we could still do that. And there is Dover Coast that is looking at putting a medical center, but still not happening. The one thing we have to look at is doctors. You know, they say we need 7 or 8 doctors. We build a medical center, we'll get doctors. Build it, and they will come.
Last up, Mr. Meisner.
Okay, this one, everybody's already pretty much said everything that needs to be said. We need to get another medical center. How fast it happens, we don't know. We also need to have a better accounting of where monies disappear to. And that's about all that needs to be said on that one.
How's everybody doing out there? Are you hanging in there? I think we're probably, what? You want to stretch? Okay, go for it. These guys here, they're going to take a little stretch. If you want to do that, that's perfect. I'm just going to let you know we'll probably do about 2 more questions after this one, and then we'll get to the closing statements. So we should have everybody out of here well before 10 o'clock, if that works for you all. Everybody kind of staying put. I know you're not all running for the door, so we'll keep going for now. I'm going to read question number 12. County Council meeting minutes routinely do not show the voting record of individual councillors. How can we get accountability? Are you in favor of a mandatory recorded vote for all matters to increase accountability of all councillors and their voting pattern? First up for this, I have Ms. Chop, followed by Mr. Colebrook.
I believe this should be a short answer for this one, but yes, I would support the mandatory voting requirement of councillors and the mayor.
And I agree. If you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. So why mark it down if you're not going to put your face on it?
Mr. Very, you're next. Mr. Miller on deck.
Yes, that's an easy one. I don't see any reason why we can't do that, although there is, if you are interested now in seeing the recorded votes, it's online. So for the last 2 years, there's a Norfolk County YouTube channel, and you can actually watch those meetings and see how everyone voted. I'm not saying that's the onus is on you, but there is a record for anyone who's interested as of right now.
Mr. Miller and Mr. Meisner on deck.
Yes, I believe in a recorded vote. One of my terms that I'm using this year is transparency. And I believe not only should we be looking at recorded votes, we shouldn't have these hidden meetings that they continuously have at council. We need to know what's going on most of the time. The only time they really need to be on these hidden meetings is when it's an HR matter or when it comes to opening a contract of some sort.
Mr. Meisner, Mr. Long on deck.
The in-camera meetings has always been a sore spot with a lot of people trying to deal with the issues before council. So again, I think the same thing, recorded vote so everybody gets to know exactly what's going on, and less in-camera meetings so that the public will know what's being discussed.
Mr. Long, Mr. Muntz on deck.
Well, we're all agreeing on the same thing. It's a no-brainer. I think one of the things I'd love to see is a voting record on a few councillors that seem to be always throwing up roadblocks. And I don't maybe need to put those names out there tonight. I think we all know who they are. And hopefully they're replaced. And I think moving down the road, I think recorded voting, accountability, transparency, everybody's mentioned that. And it's great. But I'd love, as I mentioned earlier, a report card every year. I personally want to know how I'm doing, and I'll be looking for that kind of feedback. Thank you.
Mr. Muntz, Ms. Martin on deck.
Well, I don't think it's just have a report card or have a voting list. And this I have to put back to us, the citizens. If we just have a report card on how they voted, it's just another piece of paper. It requires another filing cabinet or electronic file or whatever. And I must say, we have something to do. We have to get interested in what's going on at Norfolk County other than just tonight and other than just at the voting booth. The one thing that hurts, because I'm a political junkie, I have to admit it, but the number of people who don't have a clue about anything we've talked about here tonight. And I think if we're just going to think a piece of paper or a report card is going to do anything to answer the thrust of the question, I'm sorry, you'll just have more paper that nobody reads. So please get involved. Please stay involved. And if I'm your counselor, bend my ear when you're not happy, because I'll tell you how I voted on every damn issue. Thank you.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Luke on deck.
To answer the question, yes, I would support a recorded vote, but I have to agree with some comments here from Mr. Muntz. Let's get interested and involved, and I think building on a little bit what Mr. Very spoke about information being readily available, I would like to challenge new council to engage with your constituents and create dialogue to say, hey, this is what's coming up, this is how I intend to vote, and this is what happened. And let's keep that dialogue going to encourage interest from the public, and you won't need so much of a recorded vote. You'll know about it. Thank you.
Last speaker on this question, Mr. Luke.
Interesting question. Accountability is important. I guess where I come from, you know, we deal with a variety of motions throughout a council meeting. I don't think we need a recorded vote on everything. I move we receive the deputation as information. Do we really have to record one at a time and write it down? But I think probably maybe it's a good idea for staff reports or decisions by council in public meetings for land uses. I would be in favor of that. But, you know, simple things like, you know, let's receive this as staff information, this report. I don't think it's on camera anyhow. If you want to go back and look at the video, it shows everybody's hand going up. Those private closed sessions. 1, selling or buying property. 2, personnel issues. 3, client solicitor, in other words, litigation. Those 3 things are standard across the province. Okay, and any resolutions that or action that does come out in public. So I know people think, oh, I wonder what they're talking about back there.
Those who do want to stay interested in council can listen to 98.9 My FM and Oldies 99.7. We're there every Tuesday. We report about it the next day. All right, next question here. Some candidates have indicated that they believe there is a problem with too much bureaucracy in Norfolk, and a review of bylaws is needed to eliminate those that are not necessary. Do you agree with this? And if so, please provide a couple of examples of current bylaws you think should be eliminated. Ms. Martin, you're next, followed by Mr. Muntz.
Yes, I do agree with this. Current bylaws and site plan regulations are no longer serving our community. The ever-changing process needs more work to be communicated to the individual who's applying for a site plan or bylaw, whatever the permit may be, upfront at their original appointment, not as you go. The entire system can be put under review to better serve the community and those in need, but as can the bylaws. New council can clean sweep what is hindering growth in our community. And staff inside the planning department, in some cases I'm hearing that they feel as though their hands are tied because of these ancient bylaws. So let's free them up to do the best possible job for business owners, for service clubs, and for the average homeowner who wants to expand on their deck or their shed. I would also advocate that the planning department could host annual or quarterly events to educate the public on how to go through this process and really instill stellar customer service. Thank you.
Mr. Muntz, followed by Mr. Long.
Well, I'd be lying to you if I said this wasn't a subject dear to my heart. But then I have to disappoint you and say, who's going to do this? We're going to hire more bureaucrats to take a list of what the bureaucrats have committed to doing and created this jungle. I would rather take it one at a time. If you come to me as your full-time representative on council, we'll deal with that problem. We'll see what is the problem. I'll look at the legislation. I'll look at the bureaucracy. I'll look at how it affects you. And then I will move to have that changed or whatever required. But it's a colossal job, and we just be more people checking on more people. So deal with them one at a time as they come up. Now, initially, there may be a long list of them, but you do them one at a time, not a holus bolus thing. Motherhood and apple pie does not work. Thank you.
Mr. Long, Mr. Meisner on deck.
Better education on bylaws, I think, is important. Having worked close hand, official plan review, different things that would affect building permits, especially in rural areas. Some of those things need to be relooked at, and especially from the point of view of farmers, they seem to be saddled with a lot of issues. A friend of mine who has a farmer did some woodlot improvement, found out that the county tree guys came in and started painting on his trees and things on private property. He's still trying to figure out what they were doing, but he was totally doing what he felt was within his right as a property owner. So again, goes back to education, and I agree that we need to deal with issues one bylaw at a time and streamline, clean things up. Thanks.
Mr. Meisner, Mr. Miller on deck.
Okay, this one, we need to try to do a little bit to clean up some of the red tape. But the other part of it would be that the staff that's sent out to deal with these issues, if they went out with a little more respectful attitude, if they went out with the idea that they were out there to help the people to meet the bylaw, or to what they might have to change to meet the bylaw, or what could be done to improve it. If we get the attitude of the staff going out to deal with these things changed, you wouldn't have near as many problems because they would already get resolved, or they go back to council if council has to resolve it. But a lot of it could be done just by a change in attitude.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Beery on deck.
We need to look at our policies and bylaws and make sure that they are relevant for today. I mean, there's probably one on the books that says I can't walk beside a horse as he's going down Main Street. I'm sure the bylaw is still there. We need to actively lobby the different levels of government to get change, because a lot of these bylaws and things are coming from the upper level of government, and we need to do more lobbying to make sure that that doesn't happen, as Charlie was saying about Doug Ford and something going on with getting rid of some of the bylaws. We need a quality control system to make sure people are happy. I mean, do we ask the question, what's wrong with this bylaw? Is it working for us, or isn't it working for us? Another thing I would like to see is an office in Port Dover, so we got somebody to question. We can go and talk to them and find out what it is the bylaw means and what's going on. These are things that we need to do.
Mr. Beery, Mr. Colebrook next.
Getting rid of bylaws is more challenging than you might think. 3-4 years ago, Norfolk County amalgamated all the previously existing bylaws from the township that created Norfolk County. I was part of that. I was part of a review group that was made up of business owners from Port Dover, Long Point, Simcoe, Waterford, and Delhi, and we met with the county regularly. We picked through everything. We tried to get as many eliminated as we could. We actually ended up hiring our own representative to go through at a cost of $18,000 to our chambers to go through the bylaws with. So we've already cut a lot. That's not to say there couldn't be more. What I would like to see is actually us cut our reliance on bylaw and not call them so much to settle disputes that we could settle ourselves as neighbors. You'll see in my platform that I put on your chairs that I want to actually create a community mediation program. So when it's just a dispute between neighbors about barking dogs, wind chimes, and what have you, that you try to solve that yourselves first to create better neighborhoods rather than constantly calling bylaw. And I would also like to see that when frivolous calls are made, and if there's no infraction and neighbors are just calling on neighbors, that the person who made the call gets that charge added to their tax bill.
Mr. Colebrook, Ms. Chop on deck.
We've already addressed the red tape issue. Bylaws, yeah, there's a pile of them got to go. And I'm going to bring up chickens right now. And on principle, because you know, every level of government is very intrusive. Municipal is the worst, but it's just chickens, you say. It's not. It's an erosion of our freedoms. People don't see it. Chip away, chip away, chip away. And nobody's watching. That's what I have to say on that.
Ms. Chop, Mr. Luke, next.
The dollar value to red tape is substantial. Delays cost money, and those costs are offloaded to us, while the county simultaneously loses income by not having that taxable asset sooner. In the case of private property owners, permitting processes needs to be simplified. Some counties even do this online. But here in Norfolk, the attitude seems to prevail. Do it and ask for forgiveness later. People generally want to be law-abiding citizens, but when the county makes it so difficult, I can understand that people feel they are left with no choice. Site plan control, often referred to by my opponent. It is a fact that municipalities routinely ask for more than they can get under Section 41 of the Ontario Planning Act. The challenge is the remedy is a long process. Previously, it involved appealing to the Ontario Municipal Board, now the Land Planning Appeals Tribunal, and that process takes a year or more. So the challenge to the county is very difficult. Our provincial policy statement,
Last up, Mr. Luke.
From January to June of this year, the municipality had applications for 24 site plan. 16 of those 24 were dismissed. No fees collected, not needed. Don't believe everything you hear, folks. I would love to see a reduction of bylaws. I sign between 250 and 300 of those a year. It doesn't take a lot of work. Clerk signs them as well. Some of them are very important. All planning issues have to be passed at that council meeting on the decision by that council to become law, so that it could be registered at the town registry office. They're important. Don't get rid of those. And I could go on to debenture. It has to be a bylaw. It's the law. It's every municipality has to pass a bylaw to borrow. But in the old days, the mayor said, meeting adjourned, let's go home, and everybody ran out the door. Now, we have to have a confirming bylaw. It has to be read. Get rid of that one.
Okay, this is going to be our last question, folks. And then we'll do closing statements. Don't forget that. Okay, so are you in favor of storefront sales of marijuana in Norfolk County? I saved it for last. Okay, so first up we will have Mr. Meisner, followed by Mr. Long.
Well, this is going to be interesting. Let me see. It's probably been 35 or more years since the last time I smoked a joint. So I won't say that that I think that there is a lot of need for myself, but I also allow for the fact the law is changing in the country. The law is changing all over. And are we going to stick our head in the sand and say that if we don't allow it here, that that'll make it okay? Aren't they just going to drive to Jarvis? Aren't they just going to cross the line somewhere? What, we're going back to prohibition? It isn't really very logical. As much as I'm still not likely to start smoking again, I'm not sure that it makes a lot of sense for us to try to block everybody else who might be interested.
Mr. Long, Mr. Muntz on deck.
I think it was about a month ago, Simcoe Reformer asked all the candidates their opinion. I wrote up about 2 pages, of course. Not all of that got in the paper. But I'm in favor of storefronts, but I also, part of my response to that question was, I think we need a task force to start when the new council takes over to look at the bigger issue of fentanyl and OD deaths in Simcoe. We have some of the largest per capita. I think we're up to around 18, but we don't hear about those things. So I'm not equating legal marijuana with illegal drugs, but I think we could compound the issues. I've also kidded with my local friends in hospitality. Have you got that marijuana brownie on the dessert list yet? But I think that we have to have common sense. Thank goodness we have till April 1st. What an ironic day, April Fools, to come up with something. Thank you, Doug Ford. But anyways, we got to work that one out.
Mr. Muntz, Ms. Martin on deck.
Well, since this is self-confession time, I'm sorry. I never felt the need. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but to answer the question, it's here. It's not going away. I think the original question should have been sooner, not later. So now it just becomes, if you're going to have it, if it's going to be illegal somewhere here and legal somewhere else, it might as well be here. Then we control where here it is, so you don't want it across the street from whatever others might feel is inappropriate. And if there's money to be made on it, maybe it'll lower our taxes. Not likely, probably cause more problems than not. But you have to be realistic, and it is what it is. And if you smoke, enjoy.
Miss Martin, Mr. Luke on deck.
Okay, Norfolk County, October 17th, this will be legal in Canada, and I will be supporting the sales through storefronts here in Norfolk County because it's the responsible and progressive thing to do for Norfolk County Council in 2018. Norfolk County has time to overturn the current decision, and I may be wrong, Mr. Long, but I believe it's January 22nd of 2019, 3 months after it becomes legal. We can overturn this decision up until that date, and through the public and our police services, we can monitor this. We will use regulations from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario to provide our community with well-vetted and approved retailers, and we'll go back to the old bylaws, and we'll find a bylaw that serves a purpose, and we'll put it in a zoned area away from schools and so on and so forth. But I think education is an important component. We can roll out a program with our health board and talk to the community about it and how to protect our youth and still make the sale available. Lastly, we grow it, we pack it, let's sell it and generate tax off of it. Thank you.
Mr. Luke, Ms. Chop on deck.
A week ago, council voted to ban marijuana sales where cigarettes would be sold in the county. I voted against that motion despite what people may tell you. I did not support the ban, so I certainly have always and will always support marijuana, legal marijuana, to be sold where cigarettes are. I mean, Look at the restrictions on cigarettes. Why not a pack of marijuana behind the cupboard, etc.? But guess what? Council's motion last week is redundant. It isn't worth a pinch of salt. Because last Friday, the provincial government has had the first reading that the province will now, by April 1st, will tell municipalities that they can sell it where cigarettes are sold in municipalities. May, after that, may overturn that and ban it in their municipality. But if they do, they can't go back. Read the legislation. It's and of course, it's a majority government, so it'll get third reading. So guess what? The province is going to tell us we can sell it and where and how.
Ms. Chop, Mr. Colebrook on deck.
Prohibition is over. There used to be 124 breweries in Ontario before the last prohibition, and here we find ourselves now rewriting new zoning bylaws to accommodate. I absolutely support retail storefront sales of marijuana, and I'm confused at Charlie's position. I'm perplexed at how only one council member supported retail storefronts, despite how his vote was recorded. I thought a leader's job was to rally support for things they believed in.
Mr. Colebrook, Mr. Very on deck.
Of course, we should support the sales of it. Don't let the hair fool you. I tried it once, but I didn't inhale. It's about time this county rocked into the 21st century. Thank you.
Mr. Very, Mr. Miller on deck.
How do you follow this guy? Anyway, okay. Yes, of course. We are gonna grow it. We are gonna pack it. We are gonna ship it. We're gonna continue to sell alcohol and tobacco. It doesn't make sense to not do it. Norfolk County, we're known for #1 in apples, #1 in strawberries, #1 in pumpkins and whatever else. Pretty soon we're going to be #1 in marijuana. It doesn't make sense to not sell it here. Just wanted to let everyone know, though, anyone who is concerned, that what they sell in private enterprise is still going to be distributed by the province. So it's not like Uncle Steve is growing it in the back and you're bringing it out to sell to people. This is still a controlled industry. So I'm pro let the free market determine if there's a demand for it or not. If there is, it'll succeed. If there's not, it'll fail.
Last speaker on this question, Mr. Miller.
I agree we should have it in storefronts. I have asthma, so I've never smoked marijuana, sorry. The age of drink is 19, so that is what the level is going to be for this. Edible marijuana will not be sold until 2019. From a municipal perspective, the most important issues will be where the product is sold and how police handle the enforcement. While the cost to the police budget is unknown at this time, many police chiefs in Ontario have expressed concerns about increased pressure on police resources to enforce the marijuana laws. As councillor, I will ensure that any establishment who becomes authorized to sell marijuana is following the proper planning setbacks from schools and institutional establishments as prescribed by the county planning regulations. I am committed to working with the school boards to ensure kids in the county are educated on marijuana usage and those underage are protected.
Do you really want it to end? We can get some more questions if you want. So I'm sure we can just... We're going to be starting the closing statements in 1 second. We're just checking because there were some penalties taken off and stuff, so we're going to see if we can figure out the timing of that. One moment, please. For the most part, everyone's pretty good. We're within that 10-second cutoff time, so we're just going to give everyone a minute and a half. Oh. Cancel that. One sec. All right. So, here are the people who are going to receive a 5-second penalty. Adam Very, Doug Long, Jeff Miller, Charlie Luke, Crystal Chop, Gary Muntz, and Amy Martin. Everyone else did good. We're going to start off with one of the bad ones, Mr. Miller.
I'm bad. You have a big decision ahead of you, Ward 6. The status quo is not working. We all want a council that works together, regardless of the issues. We want a council that is in charge and actually governing. I am the best candidate. I am approachable, I am accountable, and I am transparent. And that's what I want Norfolk County to be. Approachable, accountable, and transparent. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. It's time for change. I am listening. Thank you.
Mr. Very, Mr. Colebrook, next.
We've attempted to tackle many complex issues tonight in a very short amount of time. One thing that's come up several times is the need for change, because change is coming. I would argue that that's not entirely correct. I would say that change is here. I would say that a lot of reasons that people are frustrated is because we've waited too long to make the change we need in order to keep up with our neighbors and with what our expectations are as a community. But change in itself is not enough. Change requires leadership. Change requires humility. It requires open-mindedness. It requires willpower, creative problem solving, and patience. I've learned these things from being a representative of Port Dover for the last several years, and I know that you have to keep digging and keep trying even when you don't get it right the first time. But we all need to exhibit these qualities if we want to see true change, whether you're elected or not, and you're a day-to-day citizen that goes about your business. Change can be uncomfortable for people, and I understand that there are a lot of people that are feeling anxious about the changes to the community and how fast things are going. I would encourage you to please be a part of that change. Don't resist. If you're a part of it, you can steer how that change goes and make it work for you. If you fight it off, it's going to happen without you, and you're not going to feel like you're part of your community anymore. And that's really the only way you're going to lose. So again, my name is Adam Very. I'm asking you for your vote tonight because I feel like I've earned the right to ask you for your vote. I've been a...
Mr. Colebrook, Ms. Chop, next.
The first casualty of elections are promises. But this one I promise to keep. This is the last time I'll be reading this on this campaign. The county is like a ship, adrift in a sea of uncertainty and despair. The good ship's captain and crew are too focused on damage control to see the rocky shoals that surround us. Drifting aimlessly, course determined only by the prevailing winds of the day. No one manning the helm, no firm hand on the wheel. The time has come, as with all good things, time for a new captain and crew with all hands on deck. Time to plot a new course into the future. You have 3 choices for mayor. 4 more years of the status quo with Charlie to the left. 4 years with Crystal, sitting to the right. Or 4 years with Russell, who is stuck in the middle with you. Regardless of who you vote for, damn it, get out there and vote. Thank you.
Ontario's economy is changing, and we need to regroup, rethink, and adapt to this change. Norfolk needs a clear vision and a new leader with a new attitude, because culture and change starts at the top. You, the citizens of Norfolk, deserve a leader that ensures we are not all things only to some people. I want to ensure frontline staff have the tools they need to serve us better. I will respect and honor our dedicated volunteers, and I don't want the provincial ombudsman knocking on our door ever again. I want the county to get back to being helpful and finding solutions when you walk through the front door. Our county should not be competing with the private sector, because those small businesses, like our volunteers, are the very fabric of our communities. Many of these local challenges I speak of are national challenges as well, but why are we sitting by and accepting what doesn't need to be? Let's put Norfolk on the map as a leader in change, but productive change doesn't just happen. I want to use my unique background in law, business, and engineering to bring a fresh perspective and new ideas. It should be clear that I don't shy away from hard work or have an ability to grasp the magnitude of this commitment. If I say I can do it, I can do it. Let's make Norfolk the place of choice for people and business. Oh wait, and one final fact. I first met Dennis Trevally August 3rd, 2018, and while he has been invaluable to me in providing me with background information, I didn't get where I am today by being someone's puppet. I've been standing on my own 2 feet long before I met Dennis. The choice is crystal clear. I ask for your vote on October 22nd.
Mr. Luke.
An election always comes down to this. Who do you trust to look after your interests for the next 4 years? I'm offering you my experience and understanding of the issues, my good working relationship with staff, other government groups, and people who make things happen in Norfolk. This is not an entry-level job. I have heard Crystal say, quote, the mayor's job is like you're the CEO of a large corporation, unquote. That's true. But what company would hire a CAO with great education but no related work experience? Being the mayor, I encourage education. That's my background. But I know what a reality check it was when I started working in my profession. Sometimes it's just not as easy as you think. Being the mayor is not a part-time diversion for me. This county needs someone focused and accessible on a full-time basis. You cannot do this as a part-time job, trust me. You can't do this job while you're a teacher or a pilot. It needs your full-time attention. I know Port Dover, and I think Port Dover knows me. I'm all about change. I'm all about change that comes with a real commitment to Norfolk County. Thank you.
Ms. Martin.
It is 2018 and Norfolk County Council is past its best before date. They are hindering growth and development countywide. We need to move forward as one united community to get what we want in Port Dover. As your councillor, Port Dover and Woodhouse will be well represented. I am committed to efficiency. I am committed to staying informed on all the issues, and I am committed to working collaboratively for the best interest of Ward 6. I will ensure Ward 6 knows what's happening. I am an open-minded, progressive individual with strong leadership skills, and voting for me will not only restructure the way Norfolk County Council looks, but the way it'll operate for terms to come. Thank you.
Mr. Muntz.
Well, I thought it was best to sum up for those who don't know me to say that I have the education of a honors BA in political studies and a master's degree in public administration through political studies. I will be a full-time representative for you in council. I've always taken and always will take a value for money approach to all expenditures. I can't tell you much more than what I did in the early thing, so I'd like to spend just a few seconds to correct what I think are some of the misnomers about the hub. Do not be fooled by this nonsense of let's all get together, it's good for the county. Well, it's good for Simcoe, but this is a big county. We're just down the road from Simcoe, but a huge part of this county is miles and miles and hours away. They're going to have to pay for something they will probably never don their door. I ask you to think about this. For those of you who are lucky enough to have gone to Europe, do you ever see any old buildings in Europe? You know? The reason you go to Europe is to see old buildings. I think the existing facilities in Simcoe should and can be fixed up and made good, not just in Simcoe, but across the entire county. I am skeptical of the costs that are projected to do this. I think they're high to be self-fulfilling prophecies. Thank you, and I hope you've had a good night.
Mr. Long, Mr. Meisner on deck.
First, I'd like to thank Tiller Marine for the sound effects. Thanks to all my supporters, I feel pumped and ready. Special thanks to my wife, Brenda. Family pride and joy. Wife Brenda and I met in high school and have raised our family to appreciate the bonds of community. Our family connection to the next generation of youth gives me great insight and motivation to plan a strong vision for the future, building our community and improving our great way of life. Whether it's newcomers or longtime residents, it's my driving force to make that happen. It's not about ego. That's not why I'm running. It's about the future. It's in my heart. I do this for our future, our kids, our friends, and their future families. Thank you, and vote long and vote often.
Mr. Meisner.
Well, I'll make this pretty easy. This is all about you. It's not a question of who you vote for. Most of you probably already have figured out who you were going to vote for before you ever came into this meeting. You vote for who you think will do the best job for you. The only thing I'll allow for is one of our Russell's comment. Well, I guess I'm covered because I'm the captain of the biggest boat in the harbor.
And that's a wrap. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, candidates, for coming out tonight. This was amazing. A lot of great information. If you did not get your questions answered, you can email your candidates. Also, check out Folkin Vote for election updates. October 22nd is Election Day in Norfolk County. Advance polls are right here tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.